Well, Mike,
Hey Lou.
we're live.
Yeah, I feel like it's been too long since we've been largely doing live content to observe that, yes, we are live now. But what's now to us is relative.
Yeah, we've talked about this weird paradox of time in the podcast, but
Right.
now it's quite a bit different. Now that there's like kind of some interaction happening.
Absolutely. And even when I said now, which was then, now is something altogether different. It's really a fascinating thing, Lou. Time is an interesting creature.
Yeah, even what you were saying there, I have
You mean
graph
then
paper
or
here.
now?
I don't. Is this this is a scene from Spaceballs?
Happening now.
Well, we're on a little bit of a time crunch today, given that I think you are going on vacation.
Well,
So,
we're taking the camper up to see some friends just for the weekend. So we're getting
okay.
out of town. I'm doing a little work from home this morning, and our goal is to get out of here in the next couple hours.
Okay. So should we start the show?
Let's do it.
Welcome to Hot Lou Happy Hour. I'm your host, Lou Abramowski, or somewhat extrajudiciously known as Hot Lou.
I am just regularly judicious, Mike Franklin.
Oh man, the funny thing is given that we're doing things a little bit different today, and just so the lunatics are clear, this is a recorded show. We're recording it at roughly 9:30 Central Time in beautiful Minnesota from the luxurious Hotlou Happy Hour Studios. So our preparation today, what was normally 6-ish text messages back and forth, I think was limited to about 2.
Yeah,
So
that's something though, given that it's in the morning. I've already been to the grocery store. I've already picked up my camper we're getting a little service done on it. I've had a busy day, Lou. And you know
yeah,
what? Given that it probably is a function of time, not to dig up that old canard again, but rather a function of the time of day. But this being 9:30, maybe the world has calmed down a little bit. I'm fresh out of outrage. I haven't found anything to be outraged about this morning.
I know. I had such a great night's sleep last night that I feel, and it's bright and sunny morning in Minnesota, that it feels like all is right in the world. And I haven't felt quite that same feeling of rightness in a long time. I was very careful to pronounce that accurately.
Very good.
Yeah. But,
Speak,
go
speaking
ahead.
of funny, speaking of funny plays on words, let's see if I can find it. When they say your movie star name or your
Right.
porn star name or whatever is like the month of your birth and the street you grew up
Yeah.
on.
It's the one I hear often is the name of your first pet followed by the road that you grew up on, and that would make me Star Roland.
Oh, there you go. That's
Not
pretty good.
bad. Yeah.
Well, I saw one yesterday. Your gangster name is the color of your shirt and the last thing you drank. Who are you? And the first response was, no, just no. I'm not calling myself White Powerade.
I was just thinking the same thing. I would be White Rockstar. That's amazing. Oh man, that's terrific.
Meme.
Well,
We're back to memes.
we are kind of back to memes, and I kind of resumed my friendly, jokey goof commentary on Facebook yesterday after our long conversation about erasing history. It occurred to me, I think, after the show ended and we were talking about Washington and our capital being Washington, D.C., it occurred to me that at the time of recording the show, that the interesting part about the word Washington is that I think at the center of a lot of this conversation for a long time, especially in sports, have been the Washington Redskins.
Yep.
And I had started like piecing together the joke, and I wanted to try to get it out there after the show. And before I even did that, I got a text message from Loyal Lunatic Mike Bourne talking about how it was interesting that his Indian friend found the more offensive part of Washington Redskins, the Washington part. So I was already crafting this joke, and it didn't really come out the way that I wanted to, because the humor, I think, it has been lost on many people. But it kind of speaks volumes of where we're at today in society, that we, I think other than the reaction, I think the most common reaction here has been the hug and not the laughter. And I really meant it mostly as a joke, but absent, I think, watching the show yesterday, it might not have been clear that this was inspired to be a little bit humorous. And it occurs to me that maybe what I should have done is just left the Redskins part and then just put the DC Redskins.
I've actually seen that joke before, so that would not be an original.
Okay.
But but what you pointed out to me in one of our 2 text exchanges is even that would be insufficiently woke.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it didn't occur to me until I rolled out of bed this morning that the C in DC stands for Columbia, which was inspired by Christopher Columbus.
Absolutely. So, the whole thing's got to go.
Yeah, we're stuck in an inescapable cycle of wokeness and shaming in hypocrisy.
I will. Since we're talking about it, I woke up this morning. I won't call this outrage. It's just sort of like I'd put it in the file of just plain stupid.
You mean it in the literal sense that you woke up? Like, did you get more woke this morning?
No, that's not
okay.
I awoke. I was awakened to some tweets about a sitting state rep who tweeted, and as of 9:30, I believe, still hasn't deleted this tweet, so she doesn't see a problem with it, or she just doesn't check her Twitter all that often. Hard to look at the speaker standing in front of Lincoln. Now, what I should say is, in the house, right behind the speaker's rostrum, is a big, very famous wasn't a photograph, painting of Abraham Lincoln, right? Who, as we discussed yesterday, sort of maybe is the only one who should be safe from all this. Haha, you would be wrong. Because he signed the death sentence for 38 plus 2 Dakota men hung because they tried to feed their families. This is in reference to one of the biggest mass executions of Native Americans in history.
That happened in Minnesota, right? It was like
Mankato. Yep.
Yeah.
And she's correct, historically correct, that I believe the territorial governor at the time, Alexander Ramsey, so we have to rename Ramsey County and the city of Ramsey. I hope I didn't just disparage Mr. Ramsey, but I'm pretty sure he was the territorial governor at the time. Sought the president had to sign that order. For whatever reason, the laws were at the time, and he did. And so Lincoln is he's also off the list. We can't so
yeah.
No more Lincoln High School, no more Lincoln Lincoln Drive.
No one is safe.
Ford Lincolns, but you can't have Ford either, because Ford was also tied in with the Nazis.
Yeah, we have an idea in the works for a very different type of show. We're hoping maybe next week we can put that together. We'll see. It's going to take a lot more work than 6 text messages to execute on, but
yeah,
we're kind of inspired by the last 48 hours in this whole mess. But no one is safe. And I'll say that even though I am harsh or aggressively opposed to cancel culture, I do support Tucker Carlson's right to speak his mind. But I'm not going to really feel bad if he ends up getting canceled again. We might have to dedicate a show to him, because and maybe I'm being gaslit here on the Tucker Carlson thing, but and I haven't gotten a chance to watch the whole thing, but he's been referencing, and we talked about it a little bit before we started recording, referring to the protests as the Black Lives Matter riots, and I was trying to formulate my thoughts, and I really haven't since you asked the question, because I think you asked a pretty poignant question that my response to it, and the question's not really as relevant, but I think this feels a lot like what I was criticizing Peggy Flanagan of yesterday, Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, of being a little bit disingenuous, because I don't know that I think that he's more interested in associating the Black Lives Matter brand with violence than he is about affecting positive change in the world, even though I think that maybe superficially he's trying to attempt that. But again, I'll admit that maybe I'm just being gaslit, and maybe Tucker Carlson is a wonderful human being.
I have no comment. I have no idea.
Yeah.
I'm not a particular fan of his. I find politics kind of confusing.
Yeah, he's an interesting. He's an interesting character. And I very nearly did an entire show one of the days that you were out, I think like last week, just dedicated to, I think the first show that he did after the rioting started happening, because he makes like 5% of this like 30-minute soliloquy that he puts out. It makes a ton of good points in that 5%. He just spends 95% building the foundation on a bunch of just like complete straw man arguments about how like there isn't a leader in the free world doing the right thing. And he does criticize Trump and all this other stuff, but yeah, we don't need to spend too much time on the bow tie guy.
Well, if Abraham Lincoln was insufficiently of insufficient leader material, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear no one is safe up to and including hotlou and hot mic 3. I think we're on the clock, right? We just criticized I think who would self-describe themselves as a Native American state leader.
And you know, all kidding aside, I mean, it's of concern, you know, and trying to be gracious, as we point out, but also be honest, and respectful in the context of criticism. But yeah, I'm very much aware that we could be canceled.
We should put a clock in the corner, like here, like a countdown to like it's funny. There's this incredibly, let's call it provocative t-shirt company called T-Shirt Hell. Maybe you're familiar with them.
Seen it.
They've been around for 20 years where they were just selling online. And I'd say 5 to 10% of their provocative t-shirts are straight up super racist. And they lean into it really, really hard for the sake of comedy. And one of the things that they kind of famously did years and years ago at the height of some of the, I'm sure it was after like another one of these like horrific events, they said that they were being canceled, and they sent out a message, and all their branding and everything said basically like, the woke America has won and we're going out of business. We're done. We can't do this anymore. So we're selling all of our stuff. And the next day they sent out an email that said, you guys are all idiots. We'll never stop doing this. And you just fell for the oldest trick in the book, and you created our best sales day in history.
Oh, that's awesome. And it's funny too, because we are, so much of this has to be generational. And I don't remember if I said this to you offline or if I said it at all, or if I said it on the show. But I mean, when we grew up, like when we were kids, right? The top comedians in the world were Richard Pryor, George Carlin, Sam Kinison, Eddie Murphy, who said
Andrew Dice Clay,
right? and like they said, there's no way they would get away with saying what they, and it was goddamn funny. I mean, it's hilarious. And you can do it today. I mean, I'm the only, I shouldn't say the only, but like, I'm amazed that South Park hasn't been canceled yet, although they lean into it so heavy and have for so long that they've just kind of burst through to immunity from all this. And they're some of the, still to this day, there's some of the best satire going.
Yeah, I have to say that you brought up two really interesting things here. Like one, a thought, and two, I was going to bring up the fact that I don't know if you saw Dave Chapelle dropped a 27-minute like unrefined special last night on George
Oh
Floyd
no.
stuff. Yeah, and it's on YouTube, so we'll include that in the show notes. And I only got to watch like the first 10 minutes of it, and there's like no joke in the first 10 minutes, kind of understandably. And there's also a disclaimer at the beginning that says, you know, this is totally unrefined. I hope you understand. I think it's important to get the message out before I've kind of fixed this. And it wasn't really like an apology, like I'm going to screw up. It's just, I think he knew that it wasn't going to be as funny as his normal stuff. But have you ever watched his induction into the, or not the induction, his acceptance of the Mark Twain Prize?
Mm-mm.
Do you know what the Mark Twain Prize for comedy is?
No.
They do it at the Kennedy Center every year. I think they only give it to one person. Well, I wasn't prepared to talk about this, so we'll get some more facts in the show notes about this. But effectively, at the Kennedy Center every year, they host this event where they give out the Mark Twain Prize for comedy. And as you might imagine, the people who have gotten it are like Will Ferrell, I think Richard Pryor, George Carlin, and Dave Chapelle, either last year or the year before, received it.
Okay.
And understandably so.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
in his, they're amazing, by the way. All the lunatics, and including up to and including my co-host here, need to check out all of the different Mark Twain Prize ceremonies, because a lot of the limited bits of the presentation are on YouTube, and it's often like the best comedic minds talking about their, you know, inspiration
Sure.
leading up to giving the awards. So there's these amazing stories that you wouldn't really understand. But the reason I brought it up is because Chappelle's acceptance speech talks about how comedy seems to be the only safe spot, and particularly the medium that because, you know, the stand-up comedy medium he finds to be as important for social commentary as basically any, and that it's up to America. He doesn't put it that way, but I would say that American ideals on free speech, it's up to all of us to preserve that, to not only preserve this very important medium, but also to allow comedians to make these observations in a way that we can find levity in it, along with actually make the social commentary.
Well, yeah, I mean, what do you even say to? Of course. I mean,
Yeah.
the only quibble I would have with you is saying allow. Uh, we have a whole amendment that deals with that, and
Right.
it's right up close to the top.
It's
Uh,
yeah, it's
yeah.
right near the top. And I'll say that, you know, I mean, given that we are basically the Dave Chapelle of Facebook live shows,
I'm not going there. Where's that clock?
Yeah, start the clock right now. We no, I mean, I think, you know, at the heart of the show, and every time I describe it to people, I say we're trying to, you know, shed light on either, I mean, what has turned into hotlou News Network the last 3 weeks for sure, but to make take some kind of serious or challenging situation and bring as much levity into the situation as we possibly can. And I think based on the feedback that we've gotten, I think we're getting close.
I find it cathartic, not only to do the show, but I've always turned to comedy to frankly to help me make sense of a lot of this stuff. Because even one of my podcast I used to host, one of the it's interesting because some of the most PC people, to use that phrase, in public are hilariously non-PC behind the scenes in a way that would get them canceled if any of that became public, and it openly admit that they need that making fun of our own bullshit is kind of how we deal with a lot of stuff. And
Yeah.
if you, as you point out consistently and correctly, we are all hypocrites. And so sometimes a joke is the best way to expose our own hypocrisy in a way that helps us learn and grow as people, because you don't necessarily see it when you're just living your life. You don't necessarily see that a position you like. This whole thing on unions, it's just fascinating to me to watch the political left turn on police unions and totally keep a blind eye to every other government union about which you can say just about exactly the same thing, minus the violence.
Minus violence. I was about to add that, yeah.
As Jonah Goldberg said in the Dispatch this week, the best an EPA bureaucrat could do is hit you with a stapler. But 85% of the commentary is just on point. And similarly, to see the right miss that, that I think we talk about this. The right looks at police unions and likes it because of police, and the left looks at police unions and likes it because of unions, and they kind of can't see.
Oh man, that is
speaking past each other.
That's a fascinating observation. But yeah, to your point about the old show that you were on, like the dinner that we had with a certain lieutenant governor, I think that lieutenant governor might fall into that category of somebody who privately would make jokes that would get them canceled if they were to surface publicly.
And I think the lesson there is you have to, we are openly critical of cancel culture kind of all the time. And so I would hope that whatever hypocrisy I'm guilty of, it is not parsing somebody's words and I'm sure I've done it. So find a tweet or so. I'm sure I've done it. But let's hold ourselves to the standard that context should be king, and what people say in the moment or in one tweet does not just like Christopher Columbus, George Washington, Abe Lincoln, Dave Chapelle. One statement has to be taken sort of in line with the body of work, or at least in the moment in which they're speaking. Otherwise, you're sort of missing the point.
Yeah. Can we get our legal team on top of trademarking context is king?
I would not take that case because I stole that from Eric Bischoff.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
Man, we really, it's the American public does not understand how much wrestling culture really impacts their day-to-day life.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, we're going to wrap up here pretty quick here. But I recommend everybody check out the Mark Twain Prize for all of the content. I think Will Ferrell's was probably the most brilliant that I saw. And Dave Chappelle's acceptance speech was probably the most poignant. And to have Dave Chappelle's like friends and other comedians kind of come up and talk about their past with him was also amazing. But also, I'm going to recommend Dave Chappelle's special that he dropped last night without having seen the whole thing. And I'm willing, this is the courage that you see with Hot Lou Happy Hour, Mike. I am willing to risk getting canceled by recommending that show without knowing the contents of it.
Well, good for you for taking a bold move by recommending probably the funniest living comedian, or at least in the conversation.
Times like these, we need courage.
Yeah, well, amen to that, buddy.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna wrap. I know this is a little bit faster show, but this is what you pay for, lunatics.
That's right. It's also Friday, so get out there if you're local here in Minnesota. It looks to be like one of the nicest weekends we've had all year. Get outside, throw a frisbee or a football or a child. Where's that clock? Looking for the clock.
I think maybe your mic cut out. I think you were saying throw a child into a very safe and soft area where they will not be injured.
Oh yeah, is that what was that not what it came out?
No, the mic must have cut out because I didn't hear the end of that. Yeah, it's a little technical challenges. I mean, at least there wasn't a bat or a really bad Trump impression.
That's right.
This could get worse. Okay. Thanks everybody for tuning in to the very brief Hot Lou Happy Hour. I am your host, Hot Lou.
I am driving a camper today, Mike Franklin.
Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you on Monday.